Giants have been a part of our story since we can remember, and there are several mentions of giants in the Bible. Whether or not you believe in them is another question entirely. We've been fascinated by the possibility that giants roamed the earth for centuries, and over time, several pieces of evidence might indicate that they did. Fact or myth, giants capture our imagination, and you can decide whether you believe in them or not. Here are discoveries that could prove giants exist. Giants of Ecuador. Heavy storms struck Ecuador in 2013, which unearthed a large female skull estimated to be 600 years old. The skull was found in Loja, and scientists dug a little more and discovered more parts. Once assembled, the skeleton stood 7 foot 4 inches tall, or 2.2 meters. The average height of women from 600 years ago was 5 foot 8, or 1.7 meters tall. 5 more skeletons were later on discovered. This wasn't the only discovery in Ecuador, as another skeleton was unearthed in 1964. It's on display at the Ecuador National Museum and is over 25 foot tall, or 7 meters tall. It's also believed that the bones are roughly 10,000 years old. Giant bones discovered at Lake Delavan. It's 1912 and we're in Wisconsin. The New York Times published an article about 18 gigantic skeletons being found at Lake Delavan. Buried in charcoal and baked in clay, the skeletons appeared to be human, but were much larger. There were also other differences, like the eye socket sloped backwards, the nose was higher than the cheekbones, and the jawbones resembled those of a monkey. Another giant was also found in Wisconsin. Giant remains were uncovered in 1891 in Aztalan close to Madison, and again in 1897 in Maple Creek. There are no official public records or conclusions to these supposed findings. Anna Hayden Bates. What about considering real-life giants that were actually seen by many people? For example, Anna Hayden Bates was born in Nova Scotia in 1846. She was 7 feet 6 inches, or 2.29 meters, when she was only 22 years old. She met the love of her life, another giant named Martin Van Buren Bates. He was 2.21 meters, or 7 feet 3 inches tall. They got married and made appearances at circuses as the world's largest couple. Giant deception at Kentucky Dover Mound. The Dover Mound is a large Native American burial ground located in Kentucky, USA. There, a 7 foot tall, or 2.1 meter skeleton of an Adena man was discovered. He wasn't only unusually tall, but his head had a peculiar elong shape, and his torso was disproportionately large in relation to his legs. Similar remains were found at other Native American burial grounds in Ohio. Easy to lean towards aliens, but scientists have proven they're definitely human. Larger than life. What are giants exactly? The dictionary describes them as being a legendary human-like being of great stature and strength, or also a living being of great size. In humans, it means a person that stands over 7 feet or 2.1 meters tall. The condition is known as gigantism. The tallest man to ever live was Robert Pershing Wadlow, who was nicknamed the Alton Giant or the Giant of Illinois. He was 8 feet 11 inches tall, or 2.72 meters. He only lived until the age of 22. The New York Giants. We're not referring to the American football team, but the actual giants that were said to be dug up in 1871. An archaeological dig allegedly brought forward skeletons measuring 9 feet or 2.74 meters and estimated to be 9,000 years old. The media reported on this amazing find, but strangely, all the remains have disappeared. The Giants of Death Valley. A former physician from Cincinnati, F. Bruce Russell, made an announcement in 1931 saying that he found a series of tunnels and caves running underneath Death Valley in the Mojave Desert. He and his colleague, Daniel S. Bovee, investigated the caves thoroughly. They claimed to have found human skeletons of 9 feet or 2.74 meters tall. The story was retold several times and reported in the San Diego Union in 1947. They allegedly found a ritual hall and hieroglyphics and believed it was linked to the lost city of Atlantis. Born in Willow Bunch, Saskatchewan in 1881, Beauprez's parents were an average height. He was normal till the age of 3 when he just didn't stop growing. When he was 21, he joined a circus, although he really wanted to be a cowboy. He wore a custom-made size 22 shoe and was 2.16 meters or 7 feet tall. He died at the age of 23, and the circus refused to bury him. His father was too poor to bury him, and his body remained at the Undertaker's. Soon after, his body would appear in store windows and museums. He was eventually found in an old hangar of the circus. Beauprez was mummified in 1970 and cremated in 1989. Ancient city in Ethiopia. Locals believe that an ancient city in Ethiopia called Gondar, dating back to the 10th century, is a place that was home to giants. Despite researchers not confirming that giants live there, the site has garnered plenty of interest. Over many years, locals have found old Chinese coins and bits of pottery, which is quite unusual since Ethiopia is so far away from China. They have found massive building stones that cannot be moved by man, so it surely must have been moved by giants, right? The research team did find skeletal remains, which locals believe to be the children of the giants. They did find a 12th century mosque, evidence of Islamic burials, jewelry, and pottery from the Maldives and China, and coins from the 13th century Egypt. Giant footprints. Around the globe, people have come across giant footprints that need much explaining. The most famous was found just outside of Beauprez in South Africa. It was dubbed the footprint of God and was found 100 years ago. If it did belong to a giant, the giant would have stood around 24 feet or 7.3 meters tall. The footprint is in granite, which bears no chisel marks. So, how did the footprint get imprinted into one of the hardest rocks on Earth? There is a footprint in San Jose of considerable size, and a series of giant footprints were found in China in 2016. The gentle giant. Ancient legends of giants are plenty, and even the Bible refers to giants several times. There's St. Christopher, Goliath, Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Viracocha, Nephilim, and Gilgamesh, just to name a few. Nephilim was a biblical race of giants and demigods and appear in the Old Testament. They were so large that they described seeing the Israelites as mere grasshoppers in their eyes. The ancient Inca god, Viracocha, was said to have created a race of giants, which he later destroyed because of their unruly behavior. Many natural disasters were blamed on giants. In order to regain order in humans, author of Giants, Monsters, and Dragons, an encyclopedia of folklore, legend, and myth, Carol Rose claims that these giants had to be controlled, banished, or defeated. Lovelock Cave. Legend says that between 2600 BC and to the mid-1800s, Lake Lahontan in Nevada was home to cannibalistic giants with red hair. These giants were not very popular with the Paiute Indians, who were fed up of being their dinner. War ensued between the Paiutes and the Giants lost. Each time, the Giants retreated from the Paiute, and they were eventually forced into Lovelock Cave. The Paiute lit a fire at the mouth of the cave, which left the Giants for dead. Evidence of these giants appeared in the late 1800s. Excavations took place between 1912 and 1924, and 20,000 artifacts were found, including huge moccasins, fishing gear, and large bark sandals. Before the cave was discovered, a massive skeleton was found nearby, and James Hart and David Pugh also discovered a massive mummified skeleton of a man with red hair. A giant secret. Over the past 100 years, thousands of giant skeletons have been discovered, yet the evidence is slim. Why is that? Some speculate that the Smithsonian Institute has made the evidence disappear. Most of the time, whoever exhumed the giant bones would head straight to the Institute, believing that it was the right thing to do. Reports suggest that the Smithsonian Institute covered up the findings to protect Darwin's theory of evolution. Snopes investigated this theory, and they've confirmed it to be false. But what do you believe? Giant mummies near the Colorado River. It's 1909, and the Arizona Gazette prints a report about some remarkable discoveries. According to the Gazette, explorer G.E. Kincaid was rafting down the Colorado River when he noticed a tunnel under the ground. On closer investigation, he saw that the tunnel was fortified at the end, and he found copper weapons and tools and a large statue, as well as tablets containing strange hieroglyphics. The biggest find was several 9 feet or 2.7 meter mummies wrapped in dark fabrics. He further claims that the government concealed the area from people to keep the find a secret, and also this find confirmed without a doubt that giants migrated to the US from Asia thousands of years ago. The Aleutian Island discovery. Ivan T. Sanderson was a well-known and respected zoologist, and he often appeared on television to share his knowledge. He had a strange experience when he received a letter from an engineer in the Aleutian Islands during WW2. This location is between Alaska and Russia, and at the time, the US was using the islands as a base during the conflict with Russia. They were building airstrips and were flattening the hills in the area when they discovered a graveyard of gigantic bones said to be 3 times the size of a regular adult. Hard to believe until he received a second letter from another person in the unit confirming the findings. Both men who wrote to Sanderson confirmed that the Smithsonian Institute had arrived and taken all their findings. Sanderson believed the men and felt that the Institute was not keen to rewrite every textbook with these new findings. West Hickory, Pennsylvania. Another account of giants comes from 1870 when the following headline featured in the local newspaper stated, "The Cardiff Giant Outdone, Alleged Discovery of a Giant in the Oil Regions." The article had some intriguing findings, including the height of the skeleton that reached lengths of 18 feet or 5.4 meters. The article continued to say they exhumed an enormous helmet of iron which was corroded from rust. Further digging brought to a light sword which measured 9 feet in length. The skeleton was said to be found 12 feet underground. Mounds in Iowa. This story was printed in the Worthington Advance in 1897, which described the work done by the Smithsonian Institute's Division of Eastern Mounds in Iowa. An account from the paper stated the following: "It is a matter of official report that in digging through a mountain in Iowa, the scientists found a skeleton of a giant who, judging from actual measurement, must have stood at least 7 feet 6 inches tall when alive. The bones crumbled to dust when exposed to air. The skeleton was 7 feet 6 inches or 2.2 meters tall." Before we get to our number 1, do you think it's possible that giants did exist? And that it could be that all giants might have had a genetic disorder and were regular human beings like you and me? Let us know in the comments below. And number 1, Lompoc Rancho, California. Back to 1819 we go, where soldiers were allegedly digging a pit for powder magazine at Lompoc Rancho in California. There they found a 12-foot or 3.6-meter long sarcophagus. Inside was a man that was just as tall. The site was surrounded by shells, axes, spears, and quartz. There was also indecipherable hieroglyphics inside the coffin. The soldiers chatted to a local tribe of Indians who confirmed that the skeleton belonged to a displaced Allegheny Indian. Authorities were said to order the skeleton to be reburied in a secret location so no one can find it. Other articles were printed featuring the same story.